So this is going to be a game I played at the Southwest Open 2013, and I was white, so you guys feel free to follow me on your chessboard, or you can just follow me on here. So I start off with e4, and my opponent plays c5. So this is the Sicilian, right? Okay, let's see what happens. Knight f3, a6. So this is kind of an offbeat opening, right? Usually players play e6 or d6 on move 2. All right, so with a6, it's kind of going more for the wing side, right? The queen side attack. Okay, so d4, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn. Knight f6, knight c3, e5. All right, so already there's something to be done, right? My knight's under attack. She's ready to bring her bishop out to pin my knight, right? Where this pawn will be weak. So I have a few problems I need to solve right now. So let's see what happens. Knight b3, bishop b4. So what do we call this when the bishop is attacking the knight? It's a pin, right? Good. So my knight cannot move because otherwise I'll be in check. Everyone remember this, right? Perfect. So now this pawn is unprotected. Everyone sees that? Black's threatening knight takes pawn. Okay, so I played bishop to d3, defending the pawn, and black plays d5. So controlling the center, and also adding pressure on my pawn. So I capture, knight captures. And remember, whenever there's a pin, it's always a good idea to put more pressure on the pinned piece. So right now, black has the idea of knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, and then bishop takes knight, and that's check, and that's also a fork. Everyone follows? All right, so to deal with that, I played bishop d2. Okay, knight takes knight, bishop takes, pawn takes. So black plays queen to c7. So this is pretty much the end of our opening phase, okay? So what's come out of this? I have doubled pawns on the c-file, right? My pawns are doubled. Black has not developed, though. Black has only developed their queen, and I've developed my bishop and knight. Okay? So black is also attacking this pawn. Okay, I castle, she castles. So let's take a look at how this game is going to continue, okay? So if I continue just playing kind of positional chess, I'll probably get ground down in the endgame due to these doubled pawns. If we trade off all of our pieces, my pawn structure is worse. Does everyone agree? Okay. So I play rook e1, just developing, putting my rook on the semi-open file, also attacking this pawn, right? So black plays knight d7. All right, what do you guys think about this move, knight d7? Do you guys like it? Do you guys think it's a little weird, a little awkward? Yeah, exactly. I think knight c6 would have been a little bit more of a natural move because it still allows the bishop to move, like you said. Instead, with knight d7, now this bishop needs another move to develop. Okay, so I play queen f3, and now the idea is that this pawn is poisoned, right? If queen takes pawn, then we have this nice tactic, bishop takes pawn at h7 check, sacrificing our piece, king takes bishop, and then discovery attack on the queen. Okay? So after queen f3, black sees that I'm developing my pieces towards her king. So I'm going for an attack, trying to checkmate. So black plays g6. Now, how would you continue your attack here if you're trying to checkmate black? What's the only piece that hasn't developed yet? This rook right here, right? On a1? Yeah, so I need to move it. Okay, if I move to d1, that's a pretty good move. It's on the open file, right? But I'm trying to double my rooks. So instead, I play rook e3 first, preparing rook e1, right? Double my rooks. But also, it further defends this pawn on c3, because again, if queen takes pawn, we see that anywhere I move my bishop, right? If I move it anywhere, my rook is now attacking the queen. All right. So rook e3, king g7, rook ae1. What am I doing here? I'm putting more pressure on this e-pawn, right? Anyone have questions? Okay. Pawn to f6. Now, it looks like all of my pieces are developed. I can't really come up with any checks or any concrete attacks, right? So the way to continue this attack is by throwing the pawn, h4. So my idea here is I want to play h5 and then try to open up her king side. So she plays knight b6, finally getting ready to develop her bishop. I play h5. Okay, so let me show you what happens. If pawn takes pawn on h5, this looks like it's just like a normal move, right? Pawn takes pawn. But the problem here is that after queen takes pawn, I have this move, queen takes pawn, defended by the bishop, right? And that's actually checkmate. Threatening checkmate, right? If she goes pawn to h6, I have this move, rook g3. And then king h8, queen takes pawn, and that's mate. Okay, so that's why after h5, she cannot take the pawn, okay? So instead she goes bishop to e6. So she's almost finished development, bishop to e6. Now, the problem here is that, what do you guys notice? That bishop is on the same file as my rooks, right? So it's sort of pinned. There's something like a pin here. I play knight d4, right? She cannot take this knight because otherwise I will have doubled rooks on an open file, and I'm threatening check, which wins the queen. Okay, so she plays bishop to f7, and now here comes a nice tactic. Can you guys see what I played next? I want you guys to try to find it. Give you guys a couple seconds. Push the pawn? Which pawn? h5 to h6? Right, okay, good. That's what I played. So h6 is good because now the king has to go back, right? And let me show you why, okay? Okay, king goes back, I took this pawn on f6, right? Because when it was like this, the king was defending the pawn. Everyone sees that? So after the king moves, free pawn, and then what am I threatening? Checkmate, right? Defended by the pawn. Good. So, and if she tries to take the pawn, this is just trouble for her. I do the same idea, queen takes pawn, and then it's really difficult for her to stop this checkmate threat. Okay? All right, good. King g8, queen takes pawn, and now, okay, there's a discovery attack for her now. So my queen is on the same file as the rook, and the queen is also on the same file as this checkmate threat. So she plays bishop takes pawn on a2, and now my queen is under attack by her rook. So let's take a look at what just happened, okay? So I traded my pawn on a2 for her pawn on f6, right? Which one do you guys think is more important? f6, right? It's a key defender. The f6 pawn defends e5, and also a2 is just kind of on the edge of the board. It's not doing too much. So queen takes pawn, bishop takes pawn. Okay, and now the f6 pawn was also defending e5, so play queen takes pawn. So the count here is white is up a pawn. Queen takes queen, rook takes queen. When you're winning, you try to trade. Now black plays rook f7, and then I played knight to b3, trapping her bishop. Okay, and if she takes my knight, this is what I want her to do, right? Because it undoubles my pawns, and then I have a great pawn structure. I'm just up a pawn, right? This is a simple win. Okay, so after knight b3.
But wouldn't that be a loss for you since the 9 is worth more than a bishop?
So you're saying if she takes? Okay, here the knight is worth 3 points, and the bishop's also 3. So they're equal. You're probably thinking about the rook.
The rook is 5, no?
The rook is 5, right?
So, and then I thought it was 4 and then 3 and then...
No. The knight and bishop are 3 each, 3 points apiece. So in this case, I would just be 3 pawns versus 2 pawns, right? So like 2 versus 2, two rooks, and then I have knight versus bishop. Okay. So knight b3, rook c7. She's attacking my doubled pawns. That's a good move. But I play rook e7. Do you guys remember when I said taking your rook to the 7th rank is always a great idea? It's because what's on the 7th rank? All of the pawns, right? All of the pawns. And here's a sample line, okay? If she decides to take the pawn on c3, so material's even, I get this move. Rook g7, check, defended by this pawn on h6. King f8, and then I double my rooks on the 7th, okay? And then pretty much it's forced mate here. So a simple line could be, okay, I'm sacrificing a piece here, by the way. So bishop takes knight, pawn takes bishop, rook takes bishop, and now rook takes h7. Okay, and it's forced mate here. So rook d1 check, king h2, rook b1, rook g7, and then there's no way to stop this checkmate. Everybody see that? So the king moves, this is mate. Okay. So that's why she cannot take that pawn. Instead she goes rook a c8, so trying to trade rooks. I move knight d2. I'm just rerouting my knight. King f8, trade rooks. Knight e4, defending this pawn on c3, right? And also centralizing the knight. Knight d7, pawn to c4. Trapping the bishop, right? It looks like I'm losing a pawn though. But let me show you what happens if she takes, okay? This is just tactics right here. So it's even, right? Material is even. But then knight d6, and this is game over because the rook is under attack, and I'm also threatening checkmate. And there's nowhere for her to go to stop all of these threats, right?
We need to take a break. Say you need to take a break.
All right. So I'll be right back, you guys. Just take a minute and think about this position, okay? After rook c6, what would you do here? All right, guys. So rook c6, the game's pretty much over here. So knight g5, right? Threatening the pawn on h7. Okay, so knight f6 defends the pawn on h7, right? Knight e6 check. King to g8. Knight to d8, attacking the rook and the pawn, right? And now the rook goes to b6 to defend the pawn, and it goes on a semi-open file. Now, okay, pawn to f3 prevents the knight from entering g4, where it can win the h6 pawn. So king f8, knight e6 check, king e7. Okay, so g4. The idea here is that this d5 outpost, right? This is called an outpost for my knight. If I can get my knight here without the black knight being on f6, this is a really strong square for my knight. So g4 threatens g5, right? Where it attacks the knight and it also defends my pawn. Okay, knight d7, so that's prophylaxis, right? She's moving before I can attack, but that doesn't help her case because knight d5. And now rook b1 takes, knight c3 traps the bishop. And she resigned here. So this was actually, yeah, winning the piece, it's game over, right? When you're up a piece. So that was actually the idea of c4 also, about, I don't know, 10 moves back. c4, it traps her bishop, right? Her bishop can never escape now. Everyone catch that? Okay, so basically you can see how c4 really won the game for me. All right, knight c3, game over. Hope you guys learned something from that. Basically, one tactic, that's basically just a very tactical game. I recommend working on chess tempo, stuff like that, okay? Any questions?
Yeah, whenever you traded on c3 earlier in the game, right on the opening.
Yeah.
You castled. Why didn't you take c3 here?
Okay, right, queen takes c3, it's basically, okay, so you see I've developed 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces.
Yeah.
She's developed 1.
So it's just a...
That's compensation, yeah. I'm fine here. She can castle, queen. It's basically the same thing as what happened in the game, except yeah. So
Do you
just the same thing.
see that prior, like that you would end up with one piece developed against a complete development?
Right, right. So at this point, okay, I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna. My pawn structure is worse, right? So I don't want to waste my time defending the pawn. But at the same time, what can I do to get the most for my pawn?
Right. Okay.
So it's
So you just choose to develop.
chose to develop, right? And okay, a pawn on move 10 or 12 is really not the end of the world. It's just a pawn. Okay, you can still play on as long as you just centralize your pieces, make them active. That's the most important thing about chess. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, guys. Well, that pretty much wraps up our game today.